The young and the restless spoilers. In the midst of simmering family secrets and long-standing suspicions, a question loomed large over everyone's mind: is Damian truly who he claims to be? Or is he merely an impostor with sinister intentions? The debate raged like a wildfire through every whispered conversation and tense family gathering. For years, Damian had managed to straddle a fine line between acceptance and suspicion. On one hand, if he were genuine, he had embraced Nate as his brother and even found it in his heart to forgive Amy, despite the turbulent past that shadowed them all. After all, when confronted with the heartbreaking reality of a mother battling terminal cancer, one would hardly expect anyone to harbor grudges or change who they fundamentally were. Yet, as the layers of their tangled history slowly began to unravel, a darker possibility emerged. Was it possible that Damian was not truly part of their family at all, but rather a cunning impostor plotting to infiltrate and ultimately harm Nate's family? The idea sent shivers down the spines of those who had once trusted him implicitly. It was as if every moment of his aloof demeanor, every instance where he evaded deeper personal contact, had been a subtle signal of a hidden agenda. Damian had always been a man who avoided lingering attachments, sidestepping any situation that might compel him to reveal more than he intended. His evasiveness wasn't just a quirk of personality, it was a protective measure, a self-imposed isolation driven by a desperate fear of being unmasked. Frustration and uncertainty grew until the notion that simple scientific evidence might finally put an end to the swirling doubts. Everyone wondered, why not just verify his identity with a DNA test? All it would take was a single hair, plucked from Nate or Amy, and a strand from Damian. Such a test would provide definitive answers, leaving no room for speculation. But Damian's wary nature worked against him. He was meticulous in his efforts to avoid prolonged contact with anyone and shrewdly steered clear of any situation that might lead to such an investigation. His actions had always been laced with an undercurrent of paranoia, a constant vigilance to ensure that his true identity would never be revealed. Despite these obstacles, Nate's determination to discover the truth burned brighter than ever. His love for his family and the gnawing suspicion that something was terribly amiss propelled him into action. One fateful day, during an unexpected scuffle with his younger brother, a confrontation that erupted in the chaos of pent-up emotions, Nate managed to grab a few stray strands of hair from Damian. It wasn't planned, nor was it anything more than a desperate act of uncovering the truth, but in that moment, it felt like a small victory against the tide of deception that had clouded their lives for so long. When the DNA test results finally arrived, the answers were as shocking as they were damning. The results confirmed every dark suspicion that had haunted Nate and the rest of the family: Damian was an impostor. He was not the brother of Nate, nor was he the son of Amy. The revelation sent ripples of disbelief and horror through the household. The family was left reeling, grappling with the implications of this betrayal. With Damian's true identity exposed, the next question became even more urgent and painful: if Damian was not Amy's son, then who was? In the wake of the DNA results, the atmosphere in the family home turned frigid, each member struggling with their own mixture of grief, anger, and betrayal. Amy, already worn thin by years of battling her own personal demons and the relentless progression of her illness, was now forced to confront another devastating truth. The man she had believed to be her son, a bond forged through years of shared memories, hope, and hardship, was nothing more than a carefully constructed facade, a shadow masquerading as family. The discovery not only robbed her of a part of her identity but also left her questioning every interaction, every shared secret, and every moment of false intimacy that had transpired over the years. Nate, too, was overwhelmed by a storm of conflicting emotions. His instinct to protect his family now collided with the bitter sting of betrayal. Every time he had looked at Damian, he had seen a familiar face, a face that, for a long time, had embodied the essence of family. Now, that face was nothing more than a mask, a tool used to deceive and manipulate. The DNA test was a brutal, unyielding confirmation that the man who had once claimed to be his brother was, in reality, an interloper with motives that could only be described as malicious. Nate's determination hardened, and he vowed to uncover the full extent of Damian's deception. He would not let this betrayal go unpunished, nor would he allow the impostor to continue endangering the very fabric of his family. As the family struggled to come to terms with this new reality, the question of Damian's true origins took on an even more sinister tone. Who was he really? And what was his ultimate goal? His history became a labyrinth of inconsistencies and gaps that no one had paid close attention to before. Every time he had disappeared for days on end, every vague reference to a mysterious past now assumed a more sinister significance. It was as if he had slipped into the family like a ghost, appearing only when it suited his hidden agenda and vanishing into the shadows before anyone could piece together the truth. In the ensuing days, the family set about re-examining every detail of Damian's interactions, every anomaly in his behavior, in hopes of uncovering clues about his true identity. Phone records, old photographs, and even testimonies from those who had known him during his brief, elusive appearances were scrutinized with an intensity born out of hurt and betrayal. Each new detail added to the mounting evidence that Damian had been playing a dangerous game all along, one in which the stakes were none other than the integrity and safety of Nate's family. Meanwhile, the fallout from the revelation extended far beyond Amy and Nate. Friends, acquaintances, and even distant relatives began to question their own memories and perceptions of Damian. Conversations that had once been light-hearted turned to hushed speculation in the corners of dimly lit rooms. What was once an open secret became a topic of guarded discussion among those who had witnessed his enigmatic behavior firsthand. The impostor had managed to sow seeds of doubt not only within one family but across the broader social tapestry of their community. The sense of betrayal was compounded by the fact that Damian's deception had been so meticulously planned. His every move had been calculated to build trust and gain access to the inner sanctum of Nate's family. Now, with the truth laid bare, the repercussions were inevitable. The revelation threatened to dismantle long-held relationships and shatter the fragile trust that had taken years to build. It was a wound that would take time to heal, a painful reminder that sometimes, the people closest to you might be the ones concealing the darkest secrets. As the investigation into Damian's origins deepened, new leads began to emerge. There were whispers of a mysterious benefactor who might have orchestrated Damian's insertion into the family, a figure whose motives remained as enigmatic as the impostor himself. Was this person behind Damian's charade? And if so, what did they stand to gain by destabilizing Nate's family? These questions only added to the maelstrom of uncertainty, leaving everyone to wonder how deep the roots of deception ran. Despite the chaos, Nate was determined to push forward. The DNA test had provided a clear, unassailable truth, and now it was time to uncover the full story behind the impostor. With unwavering resolve, he promised himself and his family that he would leave no stone unturned. The process would be painful and fraught with obstacles, but he knew that only by facing the truth head-on could they hope to rebuild the trust that had been so violently shattered. In a final act of defiance against the betrayal that had so deeply wounded him, Nate took charge of the investigation. He gathered every scrap of evidence, from phone records to cryptic messages that Damian had carelessly left behind. Every piece of the puzzle was scrutinized as he and a small team of trusted allies began to trace the origins of the impostor. The more they uncovered, the more it became evident that Damian's deception was part of a larger, more insidious plan, one that could have far-reaching consequences for not just their family, but for everyone intertwined in the intricate web of relationships that spanned their community. Now, as the dust of the revelation began to settle, one final, agonizing question lingered in the air like a specter. If Damian was not truly Amy's son, then who was? This question, as painful as it was essential, threatened to redefine the very nature of their familial bonds. It was a mystery that demanded to be solved, a mystery that held the key to understanding not only the extent of the impostor's treachery but also the true identity of the one person Amy had lost so long ago. For Nate, the answer would not only bring closure but also serve as the foundation upon which the family might one day rebuild the trust that had been so brutally violated. In the coming days, as investigations deepened and new evidence surfaced, Nate and his family prepared themselves for the next chapter in their tumultuous saga, a chapter defined by the relentless pursuit of truth, the resilience of the human spirit in the face of betrayal, and the hope that even in the darkest of moments, clarity and justice would prevail. The journey ahead would be long and arduous, but one thing was certain: the impostor known as Damian was no longer a ghost in their midst. His deception had been exposed, and now the real mystery beckoned, one that would forever change the course of their lives. Audra had always been the quiet enigma of the group, a woman whose calm exterior belied a tumultuous past. Lately, however, an unsettling tension had crept into her eyes, a silent plea wrapped in shadows. It was clear to everyone that she knew a secret, one that she guarded with a ferocity born from years of pain and regret. Although she had never uttered a word about it, the look in her eyes spoke volumes, a secret that could shatter the fragile peace the family had managed to build. Unbeknownst to most, Damian, the impostor whose treachery had already scarred Nate's family, had discovered fragments of Audra's hidden past. More troubling still, Damian had used this knowledge as leverage, threatening Audra with dire consequences if she ever dared to expose the secret. His manipulative tactics had reached new heights, as he sought to control not only the present but also to resurrect old ghosts to further his own malevolent agenda. In a dimly lit corner of a crowded room, Audra found herself ensnared in a web of fear and silence. The knowledge that Damian held her secret over her head was like a ticking time bomb. He had warned her in hushed tones, his voice cold and calculating, that if she spoke out, the truth would be unleashed in the most humiliating manner. The implications were catastrophic, not just for her, but for everyone connected to the intricate tapestry of Nate's family. For Nate, the stakes were personal. Though the past was a collection of bruised memories and painful regrets, he had always believed that love and loyalty could overcome even the darkest chapters of one's history. But Damian's actions threatened to rewrite that belief. The fake Damian's looming promise to reveal Audra's secret put Nate in a devastating position. Would he abandon the woman who had stood by him through every hardship if her past became public knowledge? Deep down, Nate knew that secrets, even those as bitter as Audra's, were part of who she was, and that her past did not define her worth. After all, no one truly wanted to live in the shadow of their past, yet it was a burden we all carried in some way. The atmosphere grew increasingly charged with anticipation and dread. Whispers of impending betrayal echoed in hushed conversations, as friends and family braced themselves for the moment when Damian's threats would become a reality. Everyone could sense that the situation had escalated far beyond a simple power play. Damian's machinations had reached a fever pitch, and his aim was clear: to destroy the semblance of trust and unity that Nate had so painstakingly built over the years. Nate's heart ached at the thought of losing Audra, not only because of the secret she bore but also because of the betrayal that had become synonymous with Damian's very name. The impostor had already infiltrated their lives, sowing seeds of discord and mistrust. Now, with the threat of exposing Audra's past looming like a dark cloud, Nate knew that decisive action was required. His anger simmered, fueled by a fierce protectiveness and a burning desire for retribution. One fateful night, as a storm raged outside and the winds seemed to echo the turbulent emotions within, Nate decided that he could no longer stand by while Damian played with the lives of those he cared about. Determined to reclaim control over his family's destiny, Nate meticulously devised a plan to confront the impostor. His strategy was as calculated as it was ruthless. If Damian intended to use Audra's secret as a weapon, then Nate would use every tool at his disposal to ensure that Damian's treachery would be exposed for all to see. Nate began by gathering evidence of Damian's underhanded dealings. Late into the night, in the solitude of a dimly lit study, he pored over old messages, intercepted calls, and scrutinized every detail of Damian's interactions. Every piece of evidence he uncovered painted a damning picture of the impostor's intent. Not only was Damian manipulating Audra, but he was also orchestrating a larger plan to destabilize Nate's family from within. The realization that Damian's ambitions knew no bounds steeled Nate's resolve. Armed with irrefutable proof, Nate resolved to confront Damian head-on. The confrontation was to take place in a secluded meeting room, far from prying eyes and the watchful gaze of those who might sympathize with Damian's lies. Nate's voice was low and steady as he addressed the impostor. "You've threatened to expose what's long been hidden, to use my family's past as a tool for your gain. But you're forgetting one thing, Damian. This family is built on resilience and truth. You may think you can manipulate us, but you're about to learn that we will fight back. Damian's eyes flashed with a mix of defiance and apprehension, yet he maintained his cool facade. You're playing a dangerous game, Nate, he replied, his tone measured but laced with menace. Secrets have a way of surfacing, and the truth is not something that can be kept hidden forever. Nate's response was a steely promise of retribution. Then let it surface, he said, leaning forward with a fervor that bordered on fury. I'm done being your pawn. If you want to expose Audra's past, then you'll have to go through me first. The ensuing confrontation was as much a battle of wills as it was a clash of ideologies. Nate's determination to protect his family, especially Audra, was met with Damian's relentless ambition to control and manipulate. Their verbal sparring was punctuated by bitter accusations and raw emotions. In the midst of this high-stakes encounter, Nate revealed the evidence he had amassed, a series of damning documents and recordings that left Damian momentarily speechless. The impostor's carefully constructed web of deceit began to unravel before his eyes, and the once assured smirk on his face faltered. Yet, the fight was far from over. As Damian's options dwindled, his eyes darted nervously, knowing that any misstep could lead to his complete downfall. In a desperate bid to salvage what remained of his scheme, Damian threatened once more that he would reveal Audra's secret, a revelation that could destroy her reputation and tear apart the very foundation of the family. But Nate, resolute and unyielding, would not allow himself to be manipulated any further. The battle that night was not just a clash between Nate and Damian, it was a symbolic showdown between truth and deception, between a man determined to protect his loved ones and an impostor hell-bent on chaos. As the confrontation reached its climax, Nate's allies began to rally around him. Word of Damian's misdeeds spread like wildfire, and soon the entire family was united in their determination to expose the impostor's treachery once and for all. In the days that followed, as the fallout from that fateful confrontation rippled through their lives, Nate set his plan for revenge into motion. He orchestrated a series of maneuvers designed to isolate Damian from any support network he might have cultivated. With the help of trusted confidants and a network of allies within the family, Nate ensured that every incriminating piece of evidence was brought to light. Public records, hidden communications, and even testimonies from those who had once worked with Damian were systematically compiled, leaving no stone unturned in the quest for justice. As the pressure mounted, Damian's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. No longer could he hide behind his calculated evasions or threaten those around him. His desperation grew, and in a final, fateful act of defiance, he attempted to blackmail another family member, an act so brazen that it sealed his fate. The backlash was swift and merciless. In a dramatic twist that left no doubt as to his true nature, Damian was exposed as the impostor he truly was. His manipulations, his threats against Audra, and his entire agenda were laid bare for all to see. Yet, amid the tumult and fallout, Nate's thoughts turned once more to Audra. Despite the pain that her secret might bring to light, he understood that her past was a part of her, a testament to the trials she had endured and the strength she had gained. Rather than abandon her, Nate vowed to stand by her side, determined to help her overcome the shadows of yesterday. For in his eyes, love was not about erasing the past but about embracing every part of it, even the painful chapters that had shaped who they were. In the end, Nate's revenge was not one of mere retribution, it was a reclamation of his family's integrity and a declaration that truth, no matter how painful, was the only path forward. Damian's downfall served as a stark reminder that those who sought to manipulate the past for their own gain would always be unmasked. And while Audra's secret remained a part of her history, it no longer held the power to define her future. Together, Nate and Audra, along with the rest of the family, resolved to face whatever came next with courage and honesty, determined to build a future free from the shadows of deceit.